The sun rises slowly in East Tennessee. It has a tough job to do here. First, it has to fight its way through a thick blanket of morning mist. This mist clings to everything. It settles deep in the valleys and wraps around the old, weathered peaks of the Appalachian Mountains. It's like the land itself is breathing out secrets. The air is cool and smells of damp earth, pine needles, and the faint, sweet scent of honeysuckle. This isn't just a place on a map. It's a world that feels ancient, a landscape where every shadow could hold a story and every whisper of wind through the trees could be a voice from the past. The mountains here are not just rock and dirt. They are silent keepers of time. These valleys have seen it all. They've watched civilizations rise and fall. They've witnessed the quiet determination of early settlers carving out a life from the rugged terrain. They have felt the thunder of history and the soft footsteps of those who came before. The forests are dense and dark, with towering oaks and hickories that seem to lean in and listen. Small, winding roads twist through the hills like ribbons, connecting small towns that time seems to have forgotten. Places where front porch storytelling isn't a lost art, but a daily ritual. This is a land where the line between the seen and the unseen is wonderfully, beautifully blurred. Here, the past isn't something you just read about in a book. It's an active presence. You can feel it when you walk through an old cemetery, the headstones leaning like tired old men. You can sense it in the creak of a floorboard in a century-old barn. The people who live here understand this. They have a deep respect for the history that surrounds them, a history that includes not only documented facts, but also the rich tapestry of folklore and legend. These stories are passed down from one generation to the next, as essential to their heritage as the family Bible or a well-seasoned cast-iron skillet. They are the soul of the mountains. This is the very heart of Appalachia, a place where mystery is a constant companion. The mountains hold their secrets close, revealing them only to those who are patient enough to look and listen. Every hollow, every creek bed, and every shadowed cove has a name and a story attached to it. These aren't just tales told to scare children around a campfire. They are explanations for the unexplainable, warnings and moral lessons all rolled into one. They are the living, breathing folklore of East Tennessee, a collection of mysteries just waiting for someone to come along and start asking the right questions. The answers, as I've learned, are always stranger and more fascinating than you can imagine. In the small town of Mosheim, nestled comfortably between rolling green hills, a newcomer had set up shop. Her name was Elara Vance. She had come from the city, seeking a quieter pace of life, and found it in an old brick building on Main Street. She opened Vance's Antique Emporium, a place filled with the ghosts of other people's lives. Dust motes danced in the sunbeams that slanted through the tall, wavy glass windows, illuminating stacks of forgotten furniture, boxes of tarnished silverware, and shelves of old books with cracked leather spines. Elara, with her city dweller's skepticism, was an outsider, but she was a curious one, and her shop became her classroom for learning about her new home. Her customers were the keepers of the local lore. They didn't just come in to buy a rocking chair or a vintage postcard. They came to talk. An old farmer, his hands gnarled and stained with the soil of his land, might share a story while examining a rusty plow blade. A woman looking for a quilt pattern would talk about her grandmother and how she used to say a prayer to keep the spirits of the woods at bay. Elara listened intently to it all. She began to realize that every object in her shop had a potential connection to these strange and wonderful tales. That chipped teacup? Maybe it was used during a seance? That faded photograph? Perhaps it captured a face that saw something it shouldn't have. At first, Elara treated the stories as simple, charming folklore. They were quaint, a part of the local color that made the region so unique. She would smile and nod, thinking of them as amusing anecdotes to share with friends back home. But the more she heard, the more she felt their weight. The tales were told with such conviction, with a sincerity that was impossible to ignore. There was no wink, no nudge to suggest it was all just a big joke. These legends were woven into the very fabric of the community's identity, as real and as solid as the mountains that loomed on the horizon. Her fascination grew from a casual interest into a quiet obsession. She started a journal, carefully writing down every story she heard, noting who told it and where it supposedly happened. The names started to become familiar. The Wampus Cat, the Bell Witch, the Moon-Eyed People. They were more than just characters in a story. They were explanations for the strange noises in the night, the weird feelings you get on a lonely stretch of road, or the ruins of structures that seemed too old to be man-made. Elara, the outsider, was slowly being pulled into the deep, mysterious currents of East Tennessee's hidden world. Her antique shop was no longer just a business. It was an archive of Appalachian secrets. One of the first legends that truly captured Elara's imagination was the tale of the Wampus Cat. It wasn't just a monster story. It was a story of transformation, power, and a woman's fierce spirit. As old Mr. Abernathy told her one afternoon while she was dusting a shelf of ceramic figurines, the legend began long ago with a Cherokee woman. Her husband was a great hunter, but she suspected he was using powerful magic on his hunting trips. Forbidden to join him, she disguised herself in the skin of a cougar, its yellow eyes glowing, and secretly followed him and the other men of the tribe to their sacred hunting grounds. She wanted to see their magic for herself. Crouched behind a rock, she watched as the men performed their rituals. But a medicine man, wise to the ways of the spirit world, sensed her presence. He knew she was not a real animal. As a punishment for breaking the sacred law and spying on their secrets, he cast a powerful spell on her. The cougar skin she wore became a permanent part of her, merging with her own body. She was transformed into a terrifying half-woman, half-cat creature, doomed to roam the forests of East Tennessee for eternity. She became the Wampus Cat, a fearsome guardian of the mountains, a walking, breathing warning against meddling with things you don't understand. The story resonated deeply within the community. For some, the Wampus Cat was a genuine cryptid, a real creature that stalked the darkest parts of the woods. People would swear they heard its blood-curdling screams echoing through the hollows on moonless nights. They would point to strange tracks found by creek beds or blame the disappearance of livestock on the supernatural feline. It served as a cautionary tale for children who might wander too far from home, a boogeyman that kept them close to the safety of the porch light. The W word was enough to make any kid think twice about venturing into the woods after dusk. For Elara, the Wampus Cat was more than just a spooky monster. It represented the wild, untamable spirit of Appalachia itself. It was a story about the fierce independence of the people, the deep connection to the land, and the severe consequences of disrespecting ancient traditions. The legend explained why the woods sometimes felt alive and watching. It wasn't just a collection of trees, it was a territory, and you were a guest in it. Elara started looking at the dark tree line behind her shop with a new kind of respect. She understood that in East Tennessee, the shadows sometimes had claws, and they always had a story to tell. The story of the Bell Witch was one Elara had heard whispers of even before moving to Tennessee. It's one of America's most famous ghost stories, a tale so well documented it even caught the attention of a future president, Andrew Jackson. The original haunting tormented the Bell family in the early 1800s in nearby Adams, Tennessee. A spiteful spirit, believed to be that of a woman named Kate Batts, terrorized the family with physical attacks, disembodied voices, and terrifying apparitions. The curse was so powerful and so malevolent that it eventually led to the death of John Bell Sr. It's a chilling piece of history, grounded in eyewitness accounts and historical records. But as Elara soon learned from a truck driver who stopped in her shop for a cup of coffee, the Bell Witch's influence didn't end in the 19th century. Her shadow, it seems, stretches into the modern day. The trucker told Elara about a particular stretch of highway, US Route 41, that runs near the site of the old Bell farm. He spoke in a low, serious voice, his eyes wide. He said that truckers and late-night travelers often experience strange phenomena there. Car engines suddenly die for no reason. Radios switch stations on their own, often settling on static or eerie, faint music from another era. Some have even reported seeing a shadowy figure on the side of the road. This modern extension of the legend fascinated Elara. It showed how a historical haunting could adapt and evolve, finding new ways to make its presence felt in a world of cars and technology. The spirit was no longer confined to a single farmhouse. It had claimed the entire area as its domain. The haunted highway became a local landmark of sorts, a place for teenagers to test their bravery and for skeptics to have their disbelief challenged. The story served as a constant reminder that some things from the past refuse to stay buried. The Bell Witch wasn't just a historical footnote, she was a persistent, angry neighbor. Alara thought about the nature of such a story. It was a perfect blend of documented history and ongoing personal experience. The original tale gave the modern encounters a name and a context. The new sightings, in turn, kept the old legend alive and terrifyingly relevant. It wasn't just a ghost story anymore. It was a continuous, interactive haunting that had spanned centuries. It reinforced the idea that in East Tennessee, history isn't just behind you. Sometimes it's in the passenger seat next to you, turning your radio dial and sending a cold shiver down your spine. The curse of Kate Batts was still very much at work. One day, a geology student from the University of Tennessee came into my shop. He was looking for old maps of the region, especially ones that might show cave systems. He told me a story that, honestly, felt even older than the mountains themselves. The legend of the Moon-Eyed People. According to Cherokee lore passed down through generations, when the Cherokee first arrived in the Appalachian Mountains, they didn't find an empty land. Instead, they found it already inhabited by a mysterious race of fair-skinned people who were, well, strangely sensitive to light. They were called the Moon-Eyed People because they could only see well at night and were basically blinded by the light of the sun. These unusual folks were said to live in the extensive cave networks that, honeycomb the limestone bedrock of East Tennessee. They were described as being small in stature, with white skin and blonde hair, and they apparently built some pretty impressive stone structures and fortifications. Cherokee legends say that, eventually, they drove the Moon-Eyed People from the land, forcing them to flee westward. But the story doesn't really end there. The evidence of their existence, or at least the legend's claim, can still be found. Ancient pre-Cherokee stone walls and forts, like the one found near Chatsworth, Georgia, are sometimes attributed to this lost race. The mystery is, who were they, and where did they go? The student explained that some people believe the Moon-Eyed People were not a mythical race at all. Theories range from them being Welsh explorers who arrived in America centuries before Columbus, to a lost group of Vikings, or maybe even an indigenous group with a high rate of albinism. The lack of any kind of definitive archaeological proof only adds to the power of the legend. It exists in that perfect space between myth and potential history. The caves of East Tennessee, dark and largely unexplored, become the perfect hiding place for such a profound secret. They hold the possibility of a history that could, honestly, rewrite everything we thought we knew about the continent. For me, this story was different. It wasn't about a ghost or a monster. It was about a lost chapter of human history hidden right beneath my feet. I imagined these people, living their lives in reverse, coming out from their subterranean homes only under the soft light of the moon. The idea was both poetic and, well, haunting. It gave the landscape a whole new layer of depth and antiquity. The mountains weren't just old, they were ancient, and they had been home to mysteries that modern science had yet to solve. The legend of the Moon-Eyed People suggested that the deepest secrets of East Tennessee were not in the sky, but deep within the earth. Waters in East Tennessee really are the lifeblood of the region, but, they also carry stories of tragedy and heartbreak. I learned this firsthand from a woman who came into my shop one afternoon, looking for a frame for an old painting of the Nolichucky River. She pointed to a high, jagged cliff in the painting and told me it was known locally as Lover's Leap. The story, she said, was a classic Appalachian tragedy. It told of a young Cherokee brave and a chieftain's daughter who had fallen deeply in love. But their love was forbidden by the girl's father, who had already promised her to another warrior. Faced with a future apart, the two young lovers made a pact. They decided that if they couldn't be together in this life, well, they'd find each other in the next. So they climbed to the highest point of the cliff overlooking the rushing river below. Hand in hand, they looked at each other one last time, professed their eternal love, and then leaped from the precipice into the swirling waters. Their tragic story became a permanent part of the landscape. The cliff was forever named in their memory, a stark and beautiful monument to a love that was stronger than life itself. It serves as a reminder of the passion and sorrow that this land has witnessed. But the river, it holds more than just stories of tragic romance. The woman then told me about another, more sinister legend associated with the local waters, that of the river siren. This tale was more of a ghost story, a warning to anyone who ventured too close to the river's edge at night. It was said that on misty evenings you could sometimes hear a beautiful, mournful singing coming from the water. The voice belongs to the spirit of a woman who drowned in the river centuries ago. Lured by the enchanting melody, unsuspecting fishermen or travelers would be drawn closer and closer to the water, only to be pulled under by an unseen force, never to be seen again. These two water-based legends gave me a new appreciation for the rivers and lakes of this area. They're not just bodies of water, they're containers of human emotion, repositories of both love and loss. Lover's Leap tells a story of human choice and sacrifice, while the river siren is a tale of supernatural danger, a classic warning to respect the power of nature. Together, they paint a picture of the waterways as places of immense beauty and profound peril. They show how the landscape itself can become a character in the human drama, a silent witness to the most powerful moments of people's lives. As the seasons changed, from the vibrant greens of summer to the fiery oranges and reds of autumn, I started to feel a change within myself, too. The stories I had collected were no longer just entries in a journal. They had become a part of my own understanding of the world around me. I saw the Wampus cat in the flash of a deer's eyes at the edge of the woods. I felt a chill on the back of my neck when driving on a lonely road at night and thought of the Bell Witch. The dark openings of caves I passed on hikes now made me wonder about the moon-eyed people. Every landmark, every shadow, it all seemed layered with new meaning. I started seeing the connections between the legends and the everyday lives of the people in Mosheim. I noticed how these stories shaped their language, their warnings, and their sense of place. When a storm rolled in over the mountains, someone might say, "The spirits are angry tonight." A sudden, unexplained noise in an old house wasn't just the building settling. It was just a haint, a local term for a ghost. These weren't really expressions of superstition, I realized. They were expressions of a worldview where the spiritual and the physical are closely intertwined. The folklore provided a shared language to talk about the mysteries of life and death. My antique shop transformed in my eyes. It was no longer just a collection of old objects. It was a nexus point where these stories converged. An old spinning wheel wasn't just a tool. It was an object that could have been used by a woman who told her children tales of the river siren to keep them safe. A hand-carved walking stick might have been held by a man who swore he saw the Wampus cat. I began to curate my shop with this in mind, arranging items in a way that hinted at the stories they might hold. I was no longer just selling furniture. I was a custodian of memories and myths. This growing connection made me feel less like an outsider. When I spoke with my customers now, I could share in their references. I could add a detail to a story I had heard from someone else, weaving the threads together. I was becoming a part of the local tapestry of storytelling. The people of Mosheim noticed it too. They began to see me not as the woman from the city, but as someone who understood and respected their ways. I was learning that to live in East Tennessee was to live within the stories, to accept that the world is a little more magical, a little more mysterious, and a lot more interesting than I had ever imagined. The true power of these legends, I came to understand, is that they're not relics of a forgotten past. They're alive and breathing, just as much a part of the modern landscape as the interstate highways and cell phone towers. The Wampus cat isn't just a Cherokee legend. It's the reason a high school in the area chose its mascot, connecting modern teenagers to an ancient myth every time they cheer at a football game. The stories are constantly being renewed and retold, finding new relevance in a changing world. They're not static, they're dynamic, evolving with each new generation that inherits them. This living quality gives the community a powerful sense of identity. To be from East Tennessee means you know these stories. You know which cliffs to be respectful of, which stretches of road feel strange after dark, and why you shouldn't dismiss the sounds you hear coming from the woods. It creates a bond between people, a shared secret history that sets them apart. These legends provide a framework for understanding our own place in the grand sweep of time. We're the descendants of settlers, living on land that was once home to the Cherokee, who themselves lived on land that might have once belonged to the mysterious Moon-Eyed people. I realized that the legends serve an essential purpose. In a world that often feels chaotic and random, these stories provide a sense of order and meaning. They explain the unexplainable, that strange feeling of being watched in the forest. It's the Wampus Cat, the eternal guardian. The tragic history of the land? It's remembered at Lover's Leap, the feeling that you are not alone on a dark road. The Bell Witch is still making her presence known. These tales transform a simple landscape into a rich narrative world. They give a voice to the mountains, the rivers, and the shadows. Ultimately, the folklore of East Tennessee is about connection. It connects people to their past, to their community, and most importantly, to the land itself. The stories are rooted in specific places, a particular cave, a river bend, a stretch of road. This embeds the mystery directly into the geography, making it impossible to separate the story from the place. You can't look at the Nolichucky River without thinking of the star-crossed lovers. You can't drive through Adams without a thought for the Bell family. The land holds the stories, and the stories give the land its soul. It's a powerful, beautiful, and sometimes spooky symbiosis. Today is July 13th, 2025. The summer heat hangs heavy in the air, but the morning mist still performed its daily ritual, rising from the valleys to greet the sun. I stand on the porch of my antique shop, a cup of coffee in my hand, and look out at the town of Mosheim. I'm no longer the skeptical outsider who arrived seeking quiet. I found something much more profound. I found a home not just in a place, but within a web of stories that gives that place its unique and unshakable character. The mystery of East Tennessee is no longer something I merely observe. It's something I feel. I understand now that these legends are not meant to be solved in the way a detective solves a case. Their power doesn't lie in proof or scientific validation. The question of whether the Wampus Cat is real is less important than what the story says about respecting the wild. The truth of the Moon-Eyed people is less critical than the sense of awe and ancient history it inspires. These stories are a different kind of truth. They're emotional truths, cultural truths that explain how a community sees itself and its relationship with the world. They're the heartbeats of the mountains. The folklore of East Tennessee is an everyday affair. It's in the casual conversations over a garden fence, the warnings passed from a parent to a child, the names of local businesses and sports teams. It's not a special occasion. It's the constant low hum beneath the surface of daily life. I've learned to listen to that hum. It's taught me that a place is more than just its geography or its economy. A place is its memories, its dreams, and its fears, all woven together into the stories it tells about itself. And here, the stories are as old and as enduring as the mountains. I take a final sip of my coffee and head inside to open my shop for the day. I'm ready for the customers who will come in, not just to browse my wares, but to share a piece of their world. I'm ready to listen, to learn, and to be a keeper of the tales myself. I came to East Tennessee looking for a quiet life, but I found a life rich with whispers from the past and echoes from the shadows. I found that the greatest mysteries aren't in faraway exotic lands, but sometimes they're right outside your front door, waiting patiently in the mist.